my friend Ellen here, and welcome back to my channel. Today, we are going to be getting into 3 things that you need to audit in your business every quarter. If you are new here, welcome. If you are not, welcome back. I'm very excited to get into this. This is going to kind of be a little bit of a Notion hybrid today. We do have a pretty epic sun flare happening again. But as you know from that last video I posted, I'm a fan of sun flares. So we're going to roll with it because I think they look cool and I like them. So this is something that is very near and dear to my heart when it comes to, just managing our businesses in a way that decrease stress, that just make things as easy as humanly possible for us when it comes to running a business, particularly a small business. If you are a solopreneur, you don't have a team, you have your hands on a lot of things, you're doing a lot of stuff in your business. So what are the 3 things that I think give you the most bang for your buck in terms of managing stress, making the right moves in your business, but also just making sure that you are setting yourself up for success? I think one of the big reasons why we stress ourselves out sometimes is because we're not doing that. We're not setting ourselves up for success. We are just kind of rolling with the punches. We're a little bit too willy-nilly, a little bit not strategic enough, frankly, when it comes to our businesses. And then when things don't work out the way we want them to, that's what ultimately leads to stress. So let's go ahead and dive in and take a look at the 3 things I focus on most when it comes to doing that quarterly audit in my business. This is one of those processes that has a lot of names. Some people call it a reset, a review, an audit. Especially on YouTube, we call it a lot of different things, but this is my quarterly business review / audit and the 3 things I focus on as I do it. So first thing first, I'm going to pop over to my Coach Ellen HQ. I actually did a little bit of a rebrand recently, gave my logo refresh. So head to my website if you want to check that out. And then I scroll down to the bottom of this to the personal growth section and pop into my business reviews. So I actually already had a Q1 page already set up in here, but what we're going to go ahead and do now is I'm going to delete it and I'm going to create a new one. It populates with the entire template immediately. And then I'm just going to pop in here and change the name, make the page full size because I hate writing in that center peak view. And I'm going to go ahead and update the cover photo. I have made a lot of pivots in my business recently that have really focused more on the notion of slowing down, work less, live more. And so I decided to pick a cover photo, this breathe photo that is a little bit along the lines of that. Then I'm going to go ahead and scroll down and I'm going to start with something that is kind of mindset related. You'll notice that this review is actually very bookended by check-ins on my mindset. And one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this page so that I can pull some of my top goals that I'm focusing on, my mission, and my why from various different places inside of my Notion database. So the first place that we're going to go ahead and go is I'm going to check into my BIZ roadmap. And I'm going to show you what that looks like here. My BIZ roadmap organizes all of the goals, the projects, the key results that I'm working toward in my business, and it organizes them by quarter. So it allows me to take a look at, are there any things that I'm actively working toward this quarter that I need to include in my goals? Or are there just objectives in general that I want to include in my goals? And for this one, I decided to just focus more on the objectives because a lot of them are pretty long-term. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in here some of the various different objectives I want. Again, making it full size because I hate writing in that center peak. And some of my objectives are things like take my business full-time, which is obviously a big thing that I am focusing on. Build a following through doing a podcast tour and through guest posting. I made quite a few typos in this section, so I'm going to go through and fix those up. And then my final couple goals and objectives, which are grow my YouTube channel and also really just become certified in stress specifically. This is actually a goal that I recently accomplished, so that was super cool. I just finished my stress management certification, and now I'm going to go ahead and go through and I'm going to update my mission because that was actually out of date. And I am going to pop on over to my Biz Mindset Journal, which is something I check into and update each year when I do my CEO retreat. You can see it's just like a long list of questions, and I'm going to use this to check in on my why, the why behind why I started my business. And what I'm going to ultimately do here is I'm kind of just reviewing it, looking for what some of the themes are, and then I'm going to use those themes, to update this why that I'm going to use to check in each quarter. Now, as I mentioned, this is one of the 3 things that we're going to talk about today, mindset, but I don't necessarily consider this part of it to be my mindset check-in per se. I do think it's really, really important when it comes to a sustainable mindset in your business. And this is something I talk about with clients. I've talked about in webinars where I've talked about, how to avoid burnout in your business. And I think staying very connected to your goals, very connected to your mission, and very connected to your why is a super important part of having a sustainable mindset in your business. When it comes to your business, it's not necessarily about your mindset being sustainable. It's about your mindset sustaining you and really making sure you have those things that you can lean on and leverage in the moments when things suck in business, because those moments are inevitably going to come. So I'm make the final touches on this why. And then what I'm going to go ahead and do, since I didn't have any of this information in here before, I'm going to go ahead and copy it. I'm going to actually move it into my quarterly review template. Since I've done this work now, I might as well make it easy for myself moving forward and just add this to my template so that we're all good to go when I sit down next quarter to do all of this stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and copy everything in here. And now I've got everything I need. So let's pop back into my quarterly review. And now really the first big thing I check into, this is really like step number one, is to check into my sales and my revenue goals. So typically when I would do this, I would go ahead and pull up my finance tracker to help me do this. My finance tracker, as I just showed on YouTube not too long ago, is a key part of my weekly finances date. But really what this is about is it's super important to know where your money is coming from in your business and where your money is going. So typically what I would do is I would pop into this finance tracker and I would use this information to help me fill in the revenue, the income in my business, and to help me fill in the expenses in my business. So I just made a duplicate of that window and pulled it off to the side to help me with that. And then I kind of had the idea that the perhaps easiest way for me to go ahead and do this would be to set up a sort of split screen to really make this as easy as possible for myself so that I could see my finance tracker at the same time as my revenue tracker, where I was going to start to plug in the different sources of revenue in my business. And again, I find this just to be super important because if you know where the primary income drivers are coming from in your business, you know where you need to invest effort. I have definitely poured effort and energy into products that really just weren't serving me in the past. I've also spent too much money in certain parts of my business. So this is usually what I would do is I would pull this information from my expense budgets, from my income sources. But as I was doing this, I came to the realization that, it's halfway through March and I don't have all of the information for Q1 yet. So actually what we're going to go ahead and do is we're just going to kind of fudge some numbers to show you what this looks like. So let's say I had $6,000 in income, $3,000 in expenses. This revenue tracker is actually set up to auto calculate my revenue, my self-employed tax, and my profit from all of that. So this is kind of what it would look like. The next thing I would go ahead and do is I would pop down to the section where it says sales. I would create a new row here. And what I will go ahead and do in here is I will say, where did the different sales in my business come from? Again, typically what I would do is I would pop over to my finance tracker, scroll down to where it says income sources, and pull the income sources from these various different places to really help me know where that income's coming from. But again, for this, I'm just going to kind of make up some numbers, though these numbers are pretty representative. Let's say I got $2,000 in speaking, $3,500 from coaching, $80 from Beachbody, which is not a whole heck of a lot, $650 from memberships, about $800 from digital products, about $100 from Amazon. And I'm not going to lie, I don't know what my savings deposits are off the top of my head. So let's say that my income then from this first quarter is $7,150. So perhaps I should have done this step first. But this tells me where all of the income is coming from in my business, which is again, super, super important. Because now what I can do in a very, very conscientious, intentional, very data-driven way is I can go through and I can answer some of these questions that are going to, again, help me make very intentional, conscientious decisions moving forward in my business for what are the different moves I need to make. So for example, some of the questions I've got here are what worked? What didn't work this quarter? What were some of my top 3 successes? Again, I think it's super important. We're going to talk about this a little bit more later. I think it's super, super important for us to celebrate the successes in our business. What were my 3 flops of the quarter, which actually this quarter, I had a hard time coming up with flops per se, but I did come up with some things for that I could constructively improve. My actions to increase revenue, the things that held me back from hitting my income goals, and what are the places that I want to focus on to meet this goal. And again, these are all driven by the sales and the revenue in my business. So that is really the first part that I focus on, that revenue and sales. And then the next step, this is step 2 in your business audit is to then check in on your marketing. Obviously, once we know where our income is coming from, now we can look at the things that are driving people toward buying, and that really is marketing. So the first thing we're looking at here is this business stats tracker that has marketing stats and website stats, as well as some income and expenses up above. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this tab because, again, I use this information to help me populate and fill out the marketing stats for my business. A lot of this information is out of date, again, because the quarter's not quite over as I'm recording this, but at least I know off the top of my head what a lot of this information is. So for example, I know that YouTube is a big driver for marketing for me. I know email marketing is something that works really well. And I can sometimes even just kind of look off of my previous marketing efforts and my previous reviews to kind of tell me what were the drivers back then. A lot of it tends to be the same from month to month, at least for where I'm at right now in my business. There's some consistency in what's driving the marketing in my business. And really, I realized the one that I forgot was SEO and Google. I have very strong SEO on my website, which makes it a lot easier to attract people to my website. But I think I've been leaning on SEO for a little bit too long in my business, which is perhaps why things have stagnated. So then once I address what are the top 3 marketing efforts that have worked, then I'm going to look at what search-driven platforms I want to focus on growing. And some of the things that I've been really intentionally focused on is obviously YouTube. I really want to build my YouTube channel, my YouTube following, but I also really want to build my following through some other avenues such as podcast guesting and guest posting. I'm actually in a couple programs right now to teach me kind of a more intentional strategic way to do this. So podcast guesting and guest posting are going to be huge for me this quarter, and podcast guesting is going to be my biggest focus. So the next thing I go ahead and do is I do my email marketing. And usually this is going to involve me pulling up my email client, which we'll look at in just a second. So I start by filling in my subscribers and my total list, since not everybody in your list is a subscriber. And then what I do is as I said, pull up my email client. So I use Flowdesk, and I go in and I look at the open rates, the click-through rates, etc. on my various emails. I actually have pretty high open rates, but my click-through rates are pretty low, usually because I just don't have a lot of links for people to click on inside of my emails, which is definitely something I know I need to work on. So I'm going through and I'm looking for the highest open rates that I'm sent to my entire list. And the 41.4% one was definitely my highest. So I kind of scan through and look at the different aspects, the different analytics from the email. Then I look at the subject line, which was just short and sweet. And then I look at some of the content that was inside of the email to kind of give me some hints as to kind of why people were opening it. Why was this a draw for people to open? And then I go in and I use that information to kind of populate some of the stuff in this table. So what was the most engaged campaign name? What was in it? What was the revenue that was generated? And are there any things that I can prove about my emails? And I think this one showed me that, my audience kind of likes things to be a little bit shorter, which is definitely something I struggle with. I am a chatty human. So after I go through everything, look at all of my emails, the very last thing I do is I check in on my top 3 brand messages and content themes that seem to be resonating with people. Announcements and offers of workshops are definitely resonating with my email list. Book recommendations and resources, especially Notion resources. Y'all love Notion, as do I. And then lastly, some insights and stories about why I've been intentionally slowing down. So this is the marketing check-in that I do every single quarter. And then last but not least, we're going to go ahead and check in on our mindset. So as I said before, your mindset is so huge when we are talking about business. When we are talking about business, it's a very stressful thing to be a business owner, to run a business. And if we don't know what the stressors are that are really kind of driving us, perhaps threatening us in our business, we can't make the necessary changes that we need to take control of those things, if you will. So here, I'm just checking in on various different aspects of my mindset, brand messaging, marketing, biz operations. How am I feeling about those different things? And then I check in on my biggest blocks, my biggest time sucks, the top lessons that I learned, and my top memories. This is a way, in addition to the weekly reviews that I do, that I can really start to hone in and find what are the things that are holding me back from a mindset perspective, and what are the things that are helping me from a mindset perspective. Not only does this help me manage stress and burnout, but it also really helps me manage the fulfillment side of things in my business, which again, I find to be just as crucial as anything else. So these are just some of the questions that I am asking. I identified that some of the biggest blocks for me are procrasta learning, procrasta branding, procrasta creating. I mean, shit, I just talked about how I updated my logo because it felt like I needed a refresh. Probably not the most important thing. And then the very last thing I do is I check in energetically on how did I feel this quarter. Ironically, for being a stress and burnout coach primarily, this is actually something I've only newly integrated into my business reviews and my business audits. But I think it's something that's super, super important, especially because at the beginning of this quarter, I really, really struggled with this part of my business. I really, really struggled because I had put so many things on my plate that I was really excited about. Don't get me wrong, but it was just kind of exceeding my capacity and I didn't really know how to deal with them. I had my membership running. I had an influx of one-on-one coaching clients come in. I got a whole bunch of speaking gigs happening and I was trying to juggle and do all of the things and, handle all of the many ideas that I had flowing through my brain. And I wasn't really doing a great job at assessing my energy and my needs in doing all of that. So energetically, the beginning of this quarter was a little bit rough, but I really feel like I kind of figured things out as the quarter progressed and as the quarter wrapped up. I feel like I've gotten back to those really, really strong habits that help move me forward, keep me feeling good, keep me feeling rejuvenated, and allow me to be at my best in my business. So this is some of the stuff that I am checking in with when I am checking in with my mindset, the various different aspects of my business, kind of giving myself a star rating there, the lessons I'm learning, the blocks that I'm experiencing, and then how energetically and stress-wise am I feeling over the course of the quarter. So this is the mindset section of my review, and that kind of encapsulates the 3 different things that I am checking into with my review. But before we wrap up, I want to give you a couple tips for how to be successful in doing a business audit. And the first tip I have to give you here is to make sure you are scheduling dedicated time. One of the ways in which I do this is I have a recurring task that's in my quarterly biz tasks to make sure I am doing my business review. This is scheduled to happen every 3 months on the 31st of the month, which actually I should probably move it up for those months that don't actually have a 31 in them. But this is scheduled to come up as a recurring task. But what you can also do is you can create a recurring event inside of your Google Calendar as well. I don't generally block off time in my calendar anymore for this because I find the quarterly review just kind of happens when I'm most inclined to do it. Sometimes it's on the 30th, sometimes it's on the 31st, sometimes it's on the 1st. It really varies depending upon the schedule, but you can block out some time in your calendar. I would recommend 2 hours if this is your first time doing it, and then you'll slowly streamline your process as you go. But block out that time in your calendar so that you know and you make sure that it's really, really going to happen. The next thing I would recommend is if you have a team, involve them in this review. You would be amazed at what kind of insights and answers you get to some of these different questions once you start to involve them in that. So I'm a solopreneur, so I don't currently do that. It's really all about me at this point, but best believe when I get a team, I'm going to be incorporating that. The third tip to having a very, very successful and powerful quarterly review is to make sure that the things you're coming up with are actionable. You can see on the screen right now, actually, what I'm doing is I'm going back through my actions to increase revenue, and I'm trying to be a little bit more specific about what are the specific actions that I'm going to take under each of these things. So I added that I want to audit my Facebook ads weekly and make sure that I am generating income from them. I want to audit how much income is being driven to from YouTube each month. I want to pitch weekly for my podcast guesting and aim to do 2+ podcasts a month. Same thing with guest posting. So I'm trying to take the actions that I came up with before and make them more actionable, because if we can't take specific actions on the things that we are coming up with, it's a pipe dream. We've got to be able to take action on the things that we're doing. And if we don't have control over taking those actions, they're really not going to be that helpful to us when it comes to our business. So making sure things are actionable, that's going to be super important. So I have last on here, push one-on-one coaching more. This was a goal that I added in. And I need to talk about my offerings more. I am not doing that enough when it comes to one-on-one coaching. All of my current clients are referrals. So that's definitely something I need to do a lot more of, is make things actionable. And then last but not least, there's something that's already built into this review, but it's really about celebrating successes and wins. You can see up there I have top 3 successes, and then down here I actually realized as I was doing this, oh shoot, this should say memories at the end here, not lessons. So I went ahead and moved that lesson over and added some memories of the month. So not only should we be celebrating our business successes, but what are the memories we had in our business over the course of the quarter? I have been really, really excited about how much success I've been having on YouTube, at least in my opinion. I'm definitely nowhere near a lot of the other people who do this. And frankly, I had to re-record the video part of this so many times because my audio kept getting out of sync from my video. It was a whole thing. But I'm really enjoying being on YouTube, and that feels like a memory to me. I also went to Suquamish for a speaking event. That was so much fun. I've been having, a very comfortable amount of money in my business bank account, which is a new thing for me. I'm used to things being very, very tight in my business, and I needed that confirmation and that validation. So it's just feeling really, really good right now. And so with that, that is it. That is the end of my quarterly business audit. Those are the 3 things that I recommend. I literally went like this, 3 things. 3 things that I recommend auditing when you are doing your quarterly business review: your marketing, your revenue and sales, and then of course your mindset. Because if your mindset's off, your business isn't going to be strong and you're probably going to end up wanting to quit. So I hope that gives you some good ideas, and then stay tuned for next week where I'll be doing 3 tips for a personal quarterly audit and some of the things that I do there. So stay tuned for that. But once again, if you're liking what you're seeing on this channel, don't forget to hit that like and that subscribe button down below. Drop any comments or questions that you have. And then of course, if you want any of my systems, head on over to coachellen.com, head to the links below. You can get my Burned Out Business Owners template, which is both incorporated into my Ultimate Notion Planner as well as sold as a separate planner, or you can join my brand new Notion All Access Pass membership where you get access to all of my templates as well as bi-weekly office hours and live Q&As to answer any of your Notion questions. So with that, thank you so much for watching, my friend, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.